Alright, well, welcome back. This is Better Living Concepts, and this is our book club series. And we're coming down the home stretch of David Wolfe's book, Sunfood Diet Success System. My name is Ryan, and this is my wife, Janine. And we're on lesson 30. And this lesson is The Mystery of Sex Transmutation Revisited. Seeds Must Live. This is an interesting one, a little challenging. But let's dive into the reading, and we'll come back on the other side and give us our thoughts. Lesson 30. The Mystery of Sex Transmutation Revisited. Seeds Must Live. The forbidden food in the midst of fruits and herbs, Garden of Eden, is their seed, which if eaten destroys their own purpose of reproduction and makes man and woman go to seed. Dr. Johnny Love Wisdom, Spiritualizing Dietetics, Vegetarianism. The drive for sex is one of the most powerful of all desires. Success philosopher Napoleon Hill found that when driven by this desire, people develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and a creative ability unknown to them at other times. He found that the desire for sexual expression is so powerful that people will run the risk of life and reputation to engage in it. He concluded that when harnessed and transmuted into other channels, the driving force of sex energy maintains all of its motivating attributes, which may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or any other profession or calling, including the accumulation of wealth. What Napoleon Hill revealed was that those who had achieved incredible accomplishments had a high degree of sexual charisma. They had learned to channel their sex energy into success. They had mastered the art of sexual transmutation. Napoleon Hill also discovered that those who experienced great successes in their life did not achieve those lofty heights until the age of 40 or beyond. He attributed this to the ability, with age and experience, to transmute the sexual impulse into areas of creativity and achievement. Now, this is possible to do without having to wait for age and experience to bring the sexual drive under control. The sex drive can be transmuted through the right use of diet. Proper use of diet allows us to channel energies used for sex up the spine into the brain for superior mental performance. This is a secret of creative ability. Transmuted sex energy lifts the mind into a higher sphere, allowing communication with infinite intelligence. A pure diet of fruits, green-leafed vegetables, and certain other raw foods, but no nuts, seeds, or eggs, allows one to better control the sex drive. Foods that contain seeds, such as cucumbers, are okay to eat. However, the eating of individual nuts and seeds, ergo almonds, pumpkin seeds, rice, etc., is to be avoided for a planned period of time. The teachings of herbalism, the doctrine of signatures, demonstrates that eating seeds causes us to go to seed. The hormones in nuts, seeds, and eggs drive the sexual organs. To sublimate the sex impulse and use it to drive you forward and upward in great health, wealth, which is business and sales skills, and vitality, stop eating nuts and seeds of any type for a specific period of time. A pure seedless diet automatically sublimates the sex energies. Sexual sublimation cues up the mind so it works rapidly, efficiently, clearly, with real inspiration. The control of the physical side of sex expands the imagination. It lends mighty power to the creative faculties. Male sexual fluids have extraordinarily high levels of trace minerals. For males, excessive ejaculation, or spilling the seed, without nutritionally replacing what is lost, drains minerals and life force energy from the body, which causes premature aging, leads to an accelerated loss of hair in men, and contributes to impotence. Men can replace sexual fluids by specifically eating nuts, seeds, wild coconuts, coconut oil, cacao, or raw chocolate, maca root, seaweeds, avocados, olives, and bee pollen. Breathing pure air and sunbathing nude will also help restore sexual fluids and energy. Due to the mineral deficit and toxicity caused by the standard diet, men often experience a crash or a mood swing after ejaculation, which is typically not pleasing to the sexual partner. This will reverse and may be totally eliminated once the diet is mineralized and purified by eating a healthy balance of high-quality raw plant foods. The books and articles I have read on diet, spirituality, and sex generally agree that between 25% and 40% of the life force energy men accumulate from breathing, eating, sunlight, spiritual power, etc. is transmuted into sexual energy, which is stored physically in male sperm. A single ejaculation contains 200 to 500 million sperm cells. If we consider each sperm cell as a potential human being, there are sufficient sperm cells for a man in a few days to generate the current population of the earth. That is the power of semen. Complementary to dietary considerations, there is a Taoist technique for redirection of the sexual energy called the big draw. This technique involves drawing back the discharge of sexual energy and redirecting it up the spine to the brain by drawing in the breath at the moment one is nearing sexual climax. Through practice, one can develop this retention ability. The increase in sexual potency that follows is quite remarkable in that it creates great libido, more subtle sexual enjoyment, remarkable capacity, and progressively increasing sensitivity. For men, the point is to have sex, but not to ejaculate every time. Sex is essential to the excellent health as it restores imbalances in the body chemistry, excites the sex hormones, and imbalances other major glands, the adrenal, thymus, thyroid, pituitary, hypothalamus, and pineal. Sex clears the mind, frees the spirit, and helps build a wonderful relationship with one's partner. A healthy body is a sexual body. Sexual people have a bountiful supply of active magnetism. Two tuned beings consciously uniting their physical bodies invoke a powerful spiritual energy. There is no substitute for spiritual sex. Sharing pleasure and love unconditionally with another adds a new meaning to existence. In my opinion, sex as a raw foodist with a raw foodist is a more amazing experience than anything I had known before. How to increase the sex drive? Quote, having sex with another is usually more pleasurable if the person smells appetizing, tastes, and looks good, just like food. Joshua Rainbow, Biotropic Protocol. To increase the sex drive, eat nuts, seeds, wild coconuts, coconut oil, cacao, goji berries, and maca. Eating nuts and seeds stimulates the desire to go to seed. From personal experience, I have found watermelon seeds to be quite an aphrodisiac. I'm also convinced that the stamen center of the cherimoya fruit has aphrodisiac qualities. Other raw plant foods that excite the sex impulse are avocados, olives, raw organic olive oil, raw dulse or seaweed, pollen, which is pollen from the male date palm tree, is an aphrodisiac for women, onions, garlic, and hot peppers. The yogis of India have long known that spicy foods excite the sexual passions. By eating significantly more of all these foods, males will see a major increase in sperm count and females will experience a greater sex drive. Eat organic food only. Pesticides, when absorbed into the body, end up in the sexual fluids. They decrease sexual vitality and cause sterility. Action steps. The mystery of sex transmutation revisited. Seeds must live. Number 1. Set a period of 1 month aside to use the power of sexual transmutation. For that 1 month, eat no nuts, seeds, or eggs of any type. This will automatically sublimate the sexual energies and provide you with more creative abilities in other areas. Use that time to complete a project at home, with the family, or in business. Number 2, for men, Experiment with having sex without ejaculating and withdrawing the sexual energy up the spine into the brain. And number 3, for women, cleverly include some aphrodisiac foods into you and your partner's smoothie each morning. Cacao beans, maca root powder, and coconut oil are recommended. Expect extraordinary results. All right, so another short chapter.
Yes.
Full of material. This one was a little bit confusing, though.
Yes, it seemed to be apparently contradictory.
Yeah. So we'll dive into that a little bit here in just a moment. What are your key takeaways from the get-go here?
Well, his opening quote, "The forbidden food in the midst of fruits and herbs is their seed, which if eaten destroys their own purpose of reproduction and makes man and woman go to seed." Kind of dove into a little bit of Johnny Love wisdom and his following. Which is kind of interesting. Book Spiritualizing Dietetics, Vitarianism. So the whole idea of just, fruit energy. He starts out talking about Napoleon Hill, the Think and Grow Rich book.
Yes.
He talks a lot about sex transmutation.
Yes.
So, that those who experience great success in their life tend to have higher sex drives.
Let's take a quick moment and just note that sexual transmutation is the process of redirecting sexual energy. That's what sex transmutation is. It's the process of redirecting sexual energy into other forms of creative, productive, and personal power, especially wealth-building endeavors. So that's, from the Napoleon Hill standpoint, that's kind of the direction, it is the direction that he goes, because that's what that book is all about. So redirecting sexual energy.
Yes. So... Yes, he revealed that those who achieved incredible accomplishments had a high degree of sexual charisma. They had learned to channel their sex energy into success. They had mastered the art of sexual transmutation. So, this short chapter, David talks about not eating seeds and eating seeds. So, coming to some kind of understanding of what it is that he's really recommending.
Yes.
Was, I think, core. We're trying to understand this chapter.
For sure.
This lesson.
Yeah, and that's where the seeming contradiction came into play. Whether or not what the value was of not eating seeds and what the value was of eating seeds, because he gives you both.
Yes.
And he recommends both.
Yes.
And it seems to me that based on our additional research that it seems as though there's a time and place for both.
Yes.
That's kind of what we came to. Yeah.
The sex drive can be transmuted through the right use of diet. So I think that's kind of key.
Yeah. So, before we dive into the seemingly contradiction, was there anything else that stuck out to you?
I thought that the fact that he says that transmuted sex energy lifts the mind into a higher sphere, allowing communication with infinite intelligence.
Wow, so that's big.
Yeah, so it's kind of a purpose-driven.
Say that again.
So, transmuted sex energy lifts the mind into a higher sphere, allowing communication with infinite intelligence.
Okay.
To transmute that sexual energy.
Yeah, and so what that kind of looks like on the male side of things is not allowing, to have sex, but not allowing yourself to ejaculate, right? So you withdraw that, you withhold that energy, and you drive it up the spine into your brain, and that energy then becomes a creative force. Yes,
but it also kind of makes you wonder then, what about monasteries or those who are living a celibate life in order to pursue spiritual elevation, you might say. Is that a factor in this?
It might be. I think it comes down to what your goals are.
Yeah.
If your goals are the spiritual enlightenment, then yeah, that might make sense. If your goals are creative force for the sake of increasing your wealth or your influence or what have you, then maybe doing what he's suggesting here would be appropriate.
I think the key confusion for me was that you can't shift or you can't move what you don't have.
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
So you can't transmute sexual energy that you don't have.
Right.
Or is it that it's innate in the body, and even though it may not be apparent, you can still somehow use whatever little you've got in there and move it?
Yeah. So, something that I kind of took away from this was that, there might be a moment in which you eat the seeds and the nuts so that you gain that sexual drive, that libido, but then during the act of sex, you withdraw, and drive that energy into your mind and your brain so that you can then become creative. So that's kind of a hybrid thought, that you utilize the nuts and the seeds for the energy, but then you transmute that energy. But see, then there still is that those two different paragraphs where he specifically is saying don't eat the seeds.
To sublimate the sex impulse and to use it to drive you forward and upward in great health, wealth, and vitality, stop eating nuts and seeds of any type for a specific period of time. And that's going to be one of the action steps too, right?
Yes.
A pure seedless diet automatically sublimates the sex energies. Sexual sublimation cues up the mind so that it works rapidly, efficiently, clearly, and with real inspiration. The control of the physical side of sex expands the imagination. It lends mighty power to the creative faculties. But I feel like that's still assuming that you've got some.
And so go ahead and read that other paragraph. Now that you have that out there again, go ahead and read that other paragraph that specifically states
about the higher intelligence.
The other paragraph that.
But it says don't. Oh, towards the end here. It says that one is don't. This one is to increase the sex drive. Eat nuts, seeds, wild coconuts, coconut oil, cacao, goji berries, and maca. Eating nuts and seeds stimulates the desire to go to seed. Other raw plant foods that excite the sex impulse are avocados, olives, raw organic olive oil, raw adults, pollen from the male date palm tree is an aphrodisiac for women, onions, garlic, and hot peppers, etc.
So in the plant world, when the plants go to seed, at that point their vitality begins to wane and they decline. So that's where kind of the conundrum comes in for me, is so eating fruit, seeds, for humans, from what I'm hearing David say, is that it causes us to go to seed, which again, it's a declining vitality, as I think is the metaphor from the plant world. But of course, that's not what we want. We don't want declining vitality, right? So I think looking at these two different ideas, like I was saying, we need to utilize them when the goal is to regenerate, and then not utilize them when you are already there.
Yes. So, he also says that male sexual fluids have an extraordinary high level of trace minerals, right? And then to replace those, you eat nuts, seeds, wild coconuts, coconut oil.
And that's kind of an interesting point in and of itself. That there's many different ways that our body loses minerals. And the challenge that we are having as humans these days is actually replenishing the body of those minerals, because the body doesn't make them. So we have to find ways to replenish those minerals. It was an interesting article I read a few weeks ago about athletes, particularly like NBA athletes, because they're always moving and they're always sweating. But I'm sure it's probably true for other, for football or whatever. But the common thing back in the day was to drink water because you need to rehydrate yourself. But the fact is that as you're sweating, you're losing minerals. The water does not then replenish the minerals.
Right.
And so what they found was that they started, I don't recall who it was, but somebody developed a drink that was highly mineralized, and they started using that during the games. And their players responded positively to that. So in all of this, the idea is to replenish minerals.
Yes, very important.
Yes.
Salts, etc. Yes.
Yeah, magnesium and zinc and all of it.
Yes. So sex is essential to excellent health.
Yes, it is.
As it restores imbalances in the body chemistry. Okay. Excites the sex hormones and balances the other major glands. Okay, sex clears the mind, frees the spirit, and helps build a wonderful relationship with one's partner.
Amen.
A healthy body is a sexual body. Sexual people have a bountiful supply of attractive magnetism.
Yes.
Okay. So, however, two tuned beings consciously uniting their physical bodies invoke a powerful spiritual energy.
Yeah.
There's no substitute for spiritual sex.
Yes.
Sharing pleasure and love unconditionally with another adds a new meaning to existence. Yeah.
Spot on. Yeah.
So I don't know, what's your takeaway from this chapter or this lesson? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that I think it really revolves around what you're trying to accomplish. You know, if you're trying to boost your libido, then you eat the seeds. If you're trying to be more creative and pushing towards building your wealth or what have you, then maybe you take some time off of seeds. And oftentimes this is in association with fasting and things like that as well. So I think it depends on what your goal is, and then your goals will shift as you move through seasons. Maybe seasons that not necessarily like spring, winter, fall, whatever. That's not what I'm saying, but seasons of life. And those can happen multiple times throughout the year. Those might happen throughout a 5-year period, whatever. But it depends on what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, whether or not you include seeds and nuts or maybe take a break from them.
so maybe this is completely wrong, but I kind of see it like eating stuff that's going to increase your sexual energy is like money in the bank. It's like adding something into a tank of some sort, right? And then instead of just pouring it out, you can redirect it.
Yes.
So increase your sexual drive and then get some work done or use it in a creative way. Yeah. As opposed to just having sex, although he's certainly not opposed to that either, right? He's saying that it actually and that's kind of the idea of spilling your seed is kind of a that's where you are losing you're losing energy by not utilizing it properly. But of course, in the human life, there's a time and a place for it, right? I mean, you need to spill your seed because you want to have your youngster about, you're gonna have a family, you want to have a child or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10. You're gonna spill some seed. Yes, and then you've got to replenish that, so. Yes, and so then you eat the coconut seed and the pumpkin seeds and the hemp seeds and the chia and all of that to revitalize. If you're actually wanting to procreate, then you'll want to eat more. But I also feel like the same must go for creative procreation. Interesting. Eat more of it. Very interesting. But just direct it. Yeah, that's the key. To key things, specific things. So anyways, that's my take on it. No, I think that's a good take, The two key phrases, spilling the seed and going to seed, I think are
are the two keys of this particular chapter that one needs to kind of dive into for themselves and figure out where they are. You figure out where you're at in your journey and what you're trying to achieve currently, and then you can decide whether or not you want to spill the seed or go to seed. Or that's kind of, actually spilling the seed and going to seed is kind of the same, it's in the same process. Yes,
however, again, in my mind, I think of spilling the seed as a wasting element.
Right.
Going to seed as, I would say like a regenerative, but...
Yes, I think that's a good word.
Yeah. You know, creativity in nature is most closely associated with the reproductive elements of plants. The flowers, the fruits, and the seeds. Pictured above is dragon fruit. That's in the chapter here. There's something about the seeds, if we're taking them in, they are creative.
Yeah.
So you don't want to waste that creativity.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Directed.
Yeah. Interesting point here that came up in our research. Sexual conservation equals energy mastery.
Yeah.
The concept of mastering your energy and the flow thereof is, I think, what this is all about.
Yes. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that kind of popped up here was that you can think of it as protecting your batteries.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was just thinking about.
That you don't want to drain the battery, but you want to focus. Focus retention can recharge it.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
I think that's good for a final thought.
I think so.
Unless there's anything else.
Well, the action steps, he's suggesting for a month that you use the power of sexual transmutation. You know, nut seeds or anything of that type. Then this will sublimate the sexual energies and provide you with more creative abilities in other areas.
Yeah. And I liken that to a fast. You know, I think when you fast, when you do an actual fast, that kind of what's happened is your body is draining itself of toxins.
Yes.
Right, and you have that ability to become more, have a moments of clarity. And so I think that's what this is basically doing. You know, you're giving yourself a fast from these things so that you can have that clarity. Right. So it's good to do it for a time. I don't know that for me personally that I need to do it as an ongoing thing. It just kind of depends on what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yes. Use that time to complete a project at home with the family or business.
Your honey-do list. I got this big old long list. I bet I'm not eating seeds this week.
So interestingly, he says for men, experiment with having sex without ejaculation and withdrawing the sexual energy up the spine into the brain. And then for women, cleverly include some aphrodisiac food into you and your partner's smoothie each morning. Expect extraordinary results. So it's still to me has a little bit of a contradiction.
Yeah.
But I guess understanding where you want to direct that energy, what you want to do with it is important.
And I think that's the bottom line for us.
Yes.
That's our takeaway from this is that based on your goal of what you're trying to do in that moment, you have nuts and seeds or you don't.
Yes.
Yeah, or you hybrid and you have some in order to do the energy and then you redirect the energy and then maybe do a cycle like an ecosystem. Well, that's lesson 30, transmutation, sexual transmutation, is that what it is? Lesson 31 coming up is on avocados. And I'm sure that David Avocado Wolfe has a lot to say on avocados, but that's the next lesson coming up, lesson 31 on avocados. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on this one. We hope that you found some value and definitely research this topic. I think it's worth taking some time and digging into seeds and nuts and figuring out what your current goals are, whether or not you're in a regenerative stage or a creative stage, and then determining whether or not to remove seeds and nuts from your diet for a time. And just give it a try. I'm really curious, how that works for you. Or we're curious about that. So, yeah.
Here's to your health, joy, and wealth.
See you next time.
Bye.